Shabbat Shalom, you may be seated. Zoe, Mazel Tov again. We're all so proud of you and just so thrilled to share in the Newman family joy. When we sat together to start working on your bat mitzvah speech, Zoe, it was a very different time and a very different world. One of the things we talked about is how your bat mitzvah comes whether you're ready for it or not. Our tradition comes along, and this is an official translation of the original Aramaic, says, "Ta-da, you're an adult now." Ready or not, lech lecha. Even if you don't personally feel like an adult yet, it's time to embark on your journey of Jewish adulthood. But the last 3 weeks have aged all of us, and none of us was ready for it. This should just be pure, joyous celebration, and in many ways it still is. We have to choose life and celebrate it. And so we thank you, Zoe, for giving us the chance to celebrate you. We need this, but there's so much more inside of us now. Underneath the joy, rising to the surface at all times, is painful sadness that's hard to articulate, is a love of Israel that swells from within and aches in our bones. It's a love that comes from our own personal relationship to the hills and valleys of the Golan, the dry embrace of the Negev, the cool Jerusalem stone you slip on because even your Naot sandals can't save you. And on your way down, all you can do is laugh at the thought that we're slipping on the same Jerusalem stone our ancestors did thousands of years ago. Even if you've never had the opportunity to touch down at Ben Gurion Airport, as Jews, we all share this collective beating heart that bleeds right now for our brothers and sisters in our Jewish homeland, that refuses to be comforted in the wake of the worst genocidal act committed against us since the Shoah, that is angry at a world that is too silent in response to spilled Jewish blood, at a world that denies it happened the way it happened in an anti-Semitic trope we know all too well, at a world that actually allows groups to cheer this on, this intentionally orchestrated massacre against innocent life from elder to baby as deserved, as justified in the name of Palestinian liberation, as a heroic act of decolonization without regard for or apparent knowledge of Jews' legitimate historical and political claims to a land upon whose Jerusalem stone we have slipped for thousands of years. It makes you want to don sackcloth and ashes and proclaim a fast, which the Jewish organization Hadar actually did on October 12th, and cry out until the 229 grandparents, parents, children, and babies held in captivity, subject to the unthinkable brutality of Hamas, are redeemed and returned safely to their homes and to their loved ones. It makes you want to be Abraham this week, who, after learning that his nephew, Lot, has been taken captive during a war against 9 kings, does this. Vayarek et chanichav yilidei beito, shmona asar ushlosh meot, vayirdof ad Dan. He mustered his chanichav, which means dedicated ones, followers, or retainers, born into his household, numbering 318, and went in pursuit as far as Dan. He and his servants defeated them, brought back his kinsman Lot, and the women and the rest of the people. Compared to Abraham, we who are sitting in Bnei Yeshurun, 6,000 miles away from our Israeli family, feel powerless, but we're not. Even if we can't personally pull off Abraham's miraculous rescue mission ourselves, that doesn't mean we can't play our part in redeeming the captives, a mitzvah our tradition calls Pidyon Shavuyim, one of our most, if not the most, important Jewish obligation. So we call or write our senators and local representatives demanding they do everything in their power to secure the release of hostages. We look to rituals, old and new, for healing and to inspire action. If you were here with us last night, you may have lit 2 extra candles and recited a special prayer we composed in honor of all those who couldn't welcome the Shabbat this week as they struggle to survive captivity. And this and every morning, one of our very first prayers in the Birkot HaShachar blessings goes, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam matir asurim. Blessed are you, God, who frees the captives. One of my mentors, Rabbi Harold Schulweis, Zichrono Livracha, may his memory be a blessing, always used to end his prayers with, "through me." So that prayer would become, "Blessed are you, God, who frees the captives through me." God's strong hand and outstretched arm frees the Israelites from Egypt. But even then, God doesn't do it alone. God calls out to Moses from amidst the burning bush. Like Abraham's mustering his dedicated followers, God does the same, calling on us to play our part in mitigating human suffering and releasing the bound. But what else can we do? We can remember that there's power in continuing to say their names and tell their stories. A couple of weeks ago, Rabbi Hal told the story of Hirsch Goldberg Poland, a 23-year-old Chicago native who made Aliyah with his family, served as a medic in the army, is an avid swimmer who lost his strong hand and outstretched arm to Hamas bullets and grenades as he tried to protect his fellow music festival goers hiding in a shelter. His best friend, Honor Shapira, who, like Hirsch, heroically threw back many grenades hurled at them by Hamas, did not make it out alive. Hirsch, however, was loaded onto a truck and taken away to Gaza. I want to revisit his story by sharing excerpts from a speech delivered at the UN by his anguished mother, Rachel Goldberg. She writes, "So here I live in a different universe than all of you. You are right there. We seem like we live in the same place, but I, like all the mothers and all the fathers and wives and husbands and children and brothers and sisters and loved ones of the stolen, we all actually live on a different planet. Where is the world? We, the families of the 200 hostages, are far away on our own planet of agony. But where are you? Why is no one crying out for these people to be allowed access to the Red Cross? Why is no one demanding just proof of life?" But then she makes an unexpected turn. She comes to a conclusion that no human being living on planet Earth who endured what she endured could possibly make. But maybe you can when you find yourself on another planet, the way she does, from the vantage point of looking down at Earth from somewhere else, light years away. She says, "This is everywhere on our planet. I understand that hatred of the other, whoever we decide that other is seductive, sensuous, and most importantly, it's easy. Hatred is easy, but hatred isn't actually helpful, nor is it constructive. In a competition of pain, there is never a winner. We human beings have been blessed with the gifts of intellect, creativity, insight, and perception. Why are we not using it to solve global conflicts all over the world? Because doing this is hard and takes fortitude and imagination, grit, risk, and hope. And it's hard. So instead, we opt for hatred, because hatred is so comfortable, so familiar, and so very, very easy. The time is running out to save them. The time is running out to save all of us. I couldn't presume to stand here and tell you not to be angry, because I'm angry, and I've never been more angry. But anger so easily becomes hatred, and Rachel reminds us that hatred is easy, and we don't have time for it. This is a time not for sinking into ourselves and lashing out at others, but for digging deep within ourselves and reaching out to others. This is a time for fighting anti-Semitism and sinat chinam, baseless hatred, with baseless love. For fighting misinformation and misunderstanding on college campuses and abroad, with a greater resolve to proudly tell our story and advocate for our people, our history, and our values, values which remind us of the sanctity of every human life, created b'tselem Elohim, in the image of God, values which come to tell us that we are never powerless in our pursuit to free the captives. I want to share one final insight from our tradition, a midrash, a rabbinic story from the Talmud. It goes like this. Rabbi Chia bar Abba fell ill. His teacher, Rabbi Yochanan, came to visit him and said, "Is your suffering dear to you?" Rabbi Chia said to him, I welcome neither the suffering nor its reward. Rabbi Yochanan said to him, Give me your hand. Rabbi Chia gave him his hand, and Rabbi Yochanan stood him up and restored him to health. Sometime later, Rabbi Yochanan, the teacher, himself fell ill, and another rabbi named Hanina came to visit him and said, Is your suffering dear to you? Rabbi Yochanan said to him, I welcome neither this suffering nor its reward. Rabbi Hanina said to him, Give me your hand. He gave him his hand, and Rabbi Hanina stood him up and restored him to health. But the Talmud asks, in the first part of the story, Rabbi Yochanan clearly had this power to heal his student, so why, when he eventually got sick, did he wait for another rabbi to come heal him? Couldn't he heal himself? The Talmud answers, a prisoner can't free himself from prison. In Hebrew, ein chavush matir atzmo mi beit ha'asurim. It's the same language from our matir asurim prayer. This midrash reinforces the obvious. On one hand, that Hirsch and all of our brothers and sisters held hostage need us because they cannot free themselves. But it also offers a new idea to help us through these unbearably dark times. We may not all be like Abraham, with a unique ability to defeat kings and rescue Lot, but we are not powerless. When we realize that we don't have time to hate, that this time urgently calls for love, then we can renew our commitment to redeeming others from captivity in its many different forms. When we visit the sick, we help in a small but profound way to release someone else from the captivity of their disease and their loneliness. When we proudly tell our history and our story, we can help free students held captive by the biases of their professors and unbalanced syllabi, by professors who guide students to their own point of view instead of teaching students how to think critically and understand primary sources so they can make their own decisions. When I was in college, my professor of the Arab-Israeli conflict told us all that we check our biases at the door and that we're here to have discussion and engage with the primary sources. What happened? Where has that gone? Chanichav, from the verse earlier, also means students. Abraham mustered his students. I do want to briefly share personal pride in the leadership of two organizations that have helped shape me, which have modeled exemplary leadership in combating anti-Semitism on college campuses. The Wexner Foundation, which invests in and helps train Jewish leaders across the country and in Israel, officially cut ties with Harvard, with whom it had enjoyed many years of partnership, saying in their letter, "We are stunned and sickened at the dismal failure of Harvard's leadership to take a clear and unequivocal stand." The president of Emory University recently published a statement condemning anti-Semitic phrases and slogans chanted by students at a protest on campus, writing, "I cannot be more clear, this kind of rhetoric has no place at Emory. I am appalled by this behavior. It violates our core values, particularly our commitment to creating an inclusive environment for all who learn, work, and live on our campuses." And finally, we can help free those held captive by the ensnaring allure of hate by showing them what it means to love one another, and hold each other closer as we continue to tell the stories of our hostages, say their names, and call for their immediate release. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam matir asurim. Blessed are you, Lord our God, who frees the captives. Through me. Amen. Shabbat shalom.